Unfortunately, production workflows aren't always this simple. Instead, they normally look more like this. Tracking multi-tiered part assemblies has always been a headache, with a lot of manual expediting to make sure things arrive on time. But now, with Tumult subcomponent features, it's easy for your engineering team to map out multi-tiered part structures, and it's easy to track the progress of each component as it moves towards final assembly. It starts in the engineering queue, where you can add subcomponents as you create part operations. Here we have a part CT2000 with operations already added. We'll go ahead and add subcomponents to it. We'll add raw material as a subcomponent on our first operation. We'll add hardware on our second operation. And we'll go ahead and add our table legs as a subcomponent on our attached legs operation. For each of these parts, as I add them, I can also specify the quantity that's needed per unit of my parent part. Now that these are added, I'll go ahead and release CT2000. From my confirmation pop-up, I can select a source for each subcomponent. I'm going to fulfill my raw material from stock. I'm going to get my hardware from purchasing. And I'm going to stick with production as the source of my table legs. I'm also going to select release automatically for my first two subcomponents, since I want those pieces to skip the engineering queue. Now we can see in the production queue that my parent part has been added. I'm going to go back to the engineering queue to find that my child part, my subcomponent part, has been added here as well. Now, because we had 2 units of our parent part, 2 tables that we're making, we see that we need 8 pieces of our table legs. Now, as I open up this table leg part, I see that we already have our operations added, and we even have a subcomponent here for our raw material. So I'm going to go ahead and release this. Again, I'm going to select stock for the source of my raw material. I'm going to have that released automatically. And this is going to go ahead and get added to my production queue. So right off the bat here, we can see a little indicator on my subcomponent line that lets me know that it is a subcomponent of CT2000. Opening up CT2000, I can see in each of my operations the status of my subcomponents. Now, because the raw material is being pulled from stock, that's already been completed and that's ready for me to consume. We can see in assembled planks, I have my subcomponent corner brackets not yet completed. And similarly for my attached legs, I have my table legs. Now I can go ahead and complete this operation because my subcomponent is already completed. However, if I attempt to complete an operation where the associated subcomponent is not yet ready, Tumult's not going to let me do so. So it forces me to make sure I'm completing things in order. Now, one last thing to point out here. If I want to get an overview of my complete work order and all of its subcomponents, I can click here on our little work order map icon, open this, and I can get a tiered list of all the different subcomponents that are part of this. So at the top, I've got my CT2000, I've got my 3 subcomponents there, and then I even have my subcomponent of one of my subcomponents down at the bottom here.